Good afternoon, Britain. It is 26 minutes after 2 o'clock. And now there's more bad news for the government as Labour have hit a record low in the polls.
Yes, a new survey by YouGov has found that just 17% of voters would back the Labour Party if a general election were held today. This puts Labour just 1 point ahead of the Greens, who are enjoying a new surge in support under a new leader, Zach Polanski.
So is there anything Labour can do to turn this around? Well, we're joined now by our political editor, Christopher Hope, to tell us more. So this is very bad for the Labour Party.
The bad news carries on from last Friday's Caerphilly by-election result for the Welsh Senedd. Those numbers are striking. Reform UK up 1 point to 27%, Labour down 3 to 17%, the same as the Tories unchanged, Greens up 1% to 16%, Lib Dems unchanged at 15%. To put a different way, Labour and the Tories are just 2 points off the fifth place in the polls. The government could be fifth in the polls if this carries on. Now, this polling was carried out this week on Sunday and Monday. The YouGov tell us that this figure of 17% is the lowest they've ever had Labour on. The Greens score is their highest. It's unusual to have four parties within 2 points of each other, to say the least. Labour are now at 17 points. That's half where they were in July last year, when they won 34% of the vote. And that landslide, some call it a shallow landslide because of the lack of support from the wider country for the party, even though it won. Half of all voters have therefore deserted the Labour Party. Labour appears caught in the crossfire, to be honest with you, Nana and Tom, between the Greens, Reform and Lib Dems. The Greens are eating away at the left of the party, Reform are pulling them to the right, and the Lib Dems are taking in moderate supporters, and it's almost like a kind of bait ball being bitten away by tuna in one of those David Attenborough films. Where does Labour go from here? It's a very, very difficult position, and that may be why we're seeing stronger language today about the migrant hotels. Number 10 telling us today in terms they understand the anger about migrant hotels and how it can't carry on like this. They say that it's not fair that people can be put up in some form of luxury. They say the public has lost faith in the hotels. There shouldn't be an entitlement to luxury sites for people to arrive here illegally, and that's why they're saying they'll move people from hotels into army camps before Christmas. So there's stronger language now on migrant hotels as they try and seize back the initiative in the poll race.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C-18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
Interesting stuff. Well, Christopher Hope, thanks indeed for joining us live from Westminster. Let's continue this conversation now with the former Labour advisor, Paul Richards. Paul, it does seem that the Labour government has fallen faster than just about any government in not even living memory, but before then too. I mean, this point after a general election, it's pretty bad.
Well, the opinion poll snapshot today is pretty bad. That's fair. But I think it's also fair to say that the government's taken quite a lot of difficult and tough decisions that are unpopular right now, with a view to turning around the economy and rebuilding public services, which will be popular as we get nearer a general election in 4 years' time. I'd pick up the point about the announcement on asylum hotels and the closing them down there, because I don't think that's to do with electoral politics at all. I think that's just the right thing to do, because the hotel policy is an absolute disaster. And it's funny, you can't find anyone now that thinks it's a good idea, but certainly not the Conservative ministers that introduced it, who are now shadow ministers. It's a catastrophe.
Well, funny enough, Paul, I mean, the Treasury argued in favour of it as it was cheaper than the other options. I mean, it sounds extraordinary, but but because of the legislative sort of minimum standards that we have to provide for asylum seekers, hotels were genuinely cheaper than other forms of accommodation. It sounds staggering, but it's true.
I mean, I think the profiteering that has gone on and the mismanagement of the contracts. I mean, I'd love to see if there was a way to claw back some of this public money from these profiteering hoteliers in particular, some of whom have made millions off the back of this policy by just extending contracts and just, adding zeros to their bill. And civil servants have mismanaged those contracts. But also the original policy was a bad policy. Like I say, everyone's running a mile now. So now we've got the controversy, of course, about the army camps. And local MPs are already saying, well, we don't want the hotels, but we don't want the army camps either. And I think we have to pick a lane here. While we're sorting out the backlog of applications, people have to be put somewhere. And I think the idea of putting them into disused barracks, and one of them will be near me in East Sussex, so I'm saying it's going to affect local people, but I think that is a better option than these flashpoint hotels that are costing millions, billions, as Nana says, billions of pounds. Absolutely absurd situation we find ourselves in. But opening the camps, getting them used. These are not, we're not displacing the armed forces. These are disused camps at the moment. The one in East Sussex was already used for Afghan refugees, so it has had that use before. And I think that's best of a bad bunch, really. It's a better option than the hotels.
I think the problem people have, the main problem, and it feels like the government are overlooking it, is that we don't know who the people are who are coming, especially if they're coming via a small boat. And so we don't know enough about them. They're not vetted before they enter the hotel, really, not properly. And then they're able to roam free. And that is, I think, the issue. Are your government likely to look into that and potentially maybe detain these people in some way? Now, they won't be in prison, because I know that's part of the Refugee Convention. They can't look like they've been imprisoned. However, they should be put in a place that is secure, because otherwise we could have more repetition of the kind of things that we're seeing. And I'm not saying all small boat migrants are bad.
Well, I think there's two things on that. One is we need a much more robust system of ID. And again, howls of outrage when the government suggested an ID card system. But I think that would help with at least some of it.
But that might not apply to the small boat migrants. That would apply to all of us.
I mean, criminals will always try and get around any system.
Exactly.
I think the law-abiding ones will have an ID and will know who they are. I think that's a good step forward. I know it's controversial.
Sorry, just how would the ID system help unless you were to do spot checks on people out and about on their daily business?
Because you've still got to work out who they are to make the ID card. So at that point, you'd know who they are. But we don't do any of that anyway. So I don't see. And if we can't,
I think it would be a system of identification which would help. And I don't want spot checks, but if people are going for jobs or whatever within the black economy and so on, they'd be proved that they're ineligible to work and so on. So I think that's an important part.
Well, we have those checks when people get jobs now anyway. You need your national insurance number.
Well, this is an argument about ID cards, which I'm sorry if I flagged that up. But I mean, I know I did. Yeah, absolutely. And it is part of the ongoing solution, I believe. But more importantly, I think, is having more useful activities for people in these camps to actually do.
That we pay for, like art classes and all that sort of thing.
No, I think like litter picking, sorting out graffiti, going out in high vis under supervision, and actually doing some good works in the community.
You don't know who they are.
People will be far more accepted then if people can see them doing something useful. And there's also better for them, those young people particularly, to be doing something useful anyway, because being banged up in a camp with nothing else to do for month after month is detrimental to anyone's well-being.
I wonder how the ECHR would treat that, though. Does that not sound like cruel and unusual punishment, given that that's what we make people who commit crimes do?
It could be exploitation.
It could be, but I think it'd probably just be useful works, and I think it's an idea worth looking at, because I think in the situation where we just have all of these people doing nothing, and then it does lead to the kind of problems, even the very worst instances of murder and so on that we've seen. It's because people just have nothing to do day after day after day. It's absolutely terrible. So I think finding better ways out of it. But the camps is a good start, and I welcome the government's decision. Like I say, it won't be easy, and the MPs are already saying where there is going to be one of these camps are saying, oh well, yeah, but not in my backyard. But I think as a nation, we just have to get the hotels closed, speed up the asylum applications, and put people in the camps that are not being used currently as a good way forward. And
detain them. I think a lot of people will be happy with the camps around them, but they could be doing useful things. They'll be detained and then taken out to do certain jobs and brought back to make sure that they're... I don't know. I just think it's almost saying, just keep coming in and we'll find ways to accommodate you, instead of creating some sort of deterrent. Is there a deterrent for these people from your government? What is it, if there is? Well, disrupting the business model where people are making an awful lot of money off this human misery is another way as well. And you know what I'm going to say now, but smashing the gangs is more than a slogan, because you do need to disrupt those criminal elements, those organised crime gangs, in all the different ways. But I'll say the thing I always say when you ask me this, which is, if there was a single simple thing that we would do that would stop it overnight, any government of whatever stripe would have done it by now. There isn't a single simple answer. People come up with all kinds of stuff and say, well, let's put gunboats in the Channel and whatever else it might be, or detainment camps with Alsatians. But that won't work. Well, that wouldn't have worked either, would it? Because it was just a massively expensive and a folly which didn't really... Well, America are using it now, aren't they? Well, I think they've closed their Alcatraz type arrangement, and I'm not sure we want to go down the American route, to be honest. OK, well, Paul Richards, former Labour advisor, thanks indeed for joining us and talking through that wide-ranging assessment of Labour's position in the polls. Thank you.